I want the truth, she whispered back, her heart hammering against the walls she'd constructed, because I don't know how to be with someone who hides behind lies. At that moment, the tension shifted. A fragile tenderness blossomed amidst their chaos, a promise of something more profound. And as the cafe faded back into focus, the world resumed its bustling rhythm, but neither of them felt the need to pull away. In that shared vulnerability, they both knew one undeniable fact: this would change everything. Scene 11. Rosie's kidnapping. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the bustling streets of Harlem. Tonja Coleman, her toned silhouette framed against the vibrant murals, paced anxiously in front of the cafe where she and Rosie had made countless memories. Today, that coffee shop buzzed with life laughter drifting through the air, the rich aroma of espresso and the distant sound of jazz echoing from a nearby corner. Yet an invisible weight bore down on Tonja, the absence of Rosie sharpening her senses. I can't take this anymore, Tonja blurted, frustration lacing her voice. Where could she be? Her phone buzzed like a hive of angry bees. Tonja snagged it from her pocket, flipping it open with breathless urgency. I just don't understand why she hasn't called, she muttered. Rubbing the back of her neck, she fought off the rising tide of panic. Rosie was rarely late, and this time felt different. A knot formed in her stomach. Maybe she's just caught up with something, Enzo Arnaud said, leaning back against the cafe's sun-drenched railing. His dark hair glinted like polished obsidian under the fading light, eyes scanning the street as if expecting a black SUV to pull up at any moment. Caught up? Come on, she would have called, Tonja pressed, eyebrows knitting together. You don't know Rosie the way I do. This isn't her. Enzo shifted his weight, the air around him thickening with unspoken tension. What if she's just busy? He chuckled softly, but the sound was devoid of its usual warmth. Busy or something worse? Tonja snapped as a flicker of doubt ignited a surge of adrenaline. Pain knotted within her, as if the very thought could bring a shiver to her spine. Noticing the tightness in Enzo's jawline, she added, more softly, She's my best friend. I know what she means to you, Tonja. You've had each other's backs for years, he replied, voice steady. But there was a vulnerability in his gaze, a crack in his facade that let her see how deeply the situation affected him too. With a sigh, Tonja acknowledged his concern, her heart hammering against her ribs. I need to look. Maybe you don't need to. What if she needs me? Tonja's chest tightened with desperation. What if she's in trouble? Then we'll find her, he assured, his tone calming, drawing her focus to the strength of his presence. Together. Tonja's breath caught for a moment, the gravity of their words weighing heavily in the charged space between them. His faith in her faltered, the swirling chaos enveloping her mind, igniting the flames of her psychic abilities that hummed just beneath her skin. Together, she echoed, the word pulling at something deep within. A flicker of warmth enveloped her, the urgency mingling with an awareness of the connection that throbbed silently beneath the surface between them. And then it hit her like a thunderclap. A vision, Rosie's pale face pressed against cold metal, her brown eyes wide with fear. Tonja gasped, the image cascading through her mind with terrifying clarity. Enzo! She gripped his arm, her fingers curling around his bicep. I saw her! The world around them morphed, the sounds fading as the visceral pain coursed through Tonja like an electric current. She's. The words stumbled over each other, urgency flooding her veins. She's being taken, and time is running out. We need to move. Enzo stiffened, the sharp glint of determination igniting in his gaze. Let's go. Where did you see her? Downtown. There's a warehouse somewhere near the docks, she breathed, clutching the warmth of his arm tighter. We can do this. They tore through the crowded streets, their footsteps echoing in harmony, Enzo's silent strength a buoy against her fears. The bustling life of the city blurred around them, the music fading, and the coffee shop a distant memory left in their wake, replaced only by the pounding drum of their hearts and the urgency of the moment. I can't let anything happen to her, Enzo. Tonja's voice trembled, a mix of fear and determination. We're not going to let that happen. He shot back, glancing back at her with fierce intensity. I promise. With every step closer to the truth, with every promise breathed between them, the stakes rose higher, racing toward the precipice of chaos destined to unfold. As they rounded a corner, a creeping unease settled in the pit of her stomach. We need to be careful. The syndicate will be waiting. Enzo nodded, eyes narrowing. Let's give them a hell of a fight then. They won't see us coming. Tonja smirked, tension igniting her senses. The weight of the world fell behind them. Maybe they were meant to face this together, shadows and all. The streets of Harlem were more than just their battleground. They were the cradle of their strength. But as they approached the dim outline of the warehouse, she whispered fiercely, I don't just want to save Rosie. I need to find out what these monsters have planned. Turning to Enzo, determination igniting her gaze, she felt the depth of their bond resonate through her, unshakable, unyielding, a force unmatched amid the darkness encroaching around them. Scene 12, a dangerous alliance. The warehouse loomed over them, its graffiti-covered walls shadowing the unforgiving pavement. Inside, the air thick with tension, Enzo crossed his arms, his gaze unyielding. So, you're willing to risk everything for Rosie, he declared, voice steady, but a flicker of doubt betrayed the depth of his concern. Tonja's breath quickened, the stakes hovering like a storm cloud overhead. She's not only my best friend, she knows things about me no one else does. We have to go in there and get her. Her tone was fierce, but there was a tremor just under the surface, an uncharacteristic vulnerability she was having trouble containing. Do you really think these people will just hand her over? This isn't a game, Enzo cautioned, his brow furrowed with intensity. The light from a flickering bulb above sped across his features, revealing the determination etched onto his face. They needed to work together, but trust was thin, as fragile as glass on the brink of shattering. The door creaked open, and Ishmael stepped inside, a surprising smirk curling his lips. Considering your bold entrance strategies, I'd say you two are moving up in the world. His nonchalance sliced through the tension, and Tonja felt her heart race, not from fear, but from an unwelcome warmth at having both powerful men beside her, united in a common goal that felt perilously personal. Don't you dare be flippant, Tonja shot back, stepping closer to Ishmael. Her voice was a whisper now, though the heat of her frustration was unmistakable. This is about Rosie, not our history. Ishmael's eyes darkened, the humor fading. Right, let's just keep it business then. We'll need their help, but make no mistake, this is a transaction. He turned to Enzo, forming their tentative plan as if it had long been etched in stone. I suggest a show of good faith, something that demonstrates we're not just playing around. Tonja nodded, her resolve hardening. What if we offer them something they can't refuse? We have a target of interest that could benefit their operations. Enzo let out a low, high, contemplative sound, but using our leverage on a rival syndicate isn't exactly what I'd call a solid alliance. He studied her, and against the backdrop of looming danger, an indescribable chemistry crackled between them. Suddenly, Ishmael's expression shifted, revealing a rare moment of vulnerability. And what if it's too late? What if we can't save her? There was an earnestness in his velvety voice, a slight tremor that surprised even him. Tonja stepped forward, taking Ishmael's elbow gently. Then we fight. We fight for her, for our truths, and for what's right. Her eyes locked onto his. The world around them faded away. The weight of unspoken secrets lingered between them like a haunting melody. As their focus deepened, Enzo took a step back, an undeniable wave of jealousy coursing through him. We're running out of time. His suggestion, calm yet imploring, was drowned out by the intensity building in the air, a charged silence humming around them. Suddenly, Tonja, filled with determination, turned and closed the gap between her and Enzo. She looked into his eyes, desperation flickering in her gaze. We will bring her back, she whispered, her voice steady. In that instant, everything shifted. The tension melded into something palpable. Enzo reached out, fingers brushing against her cheek, and the world around them vanished again. The heat surged as she pressed forward, their lips just inches apart, the longing evident. Time slowed, breaths mingling in the narrow space. Without another thought, Tonja leaned in, feeling the warmth of his smile pressing against hers. It was a small, light kiss infused with promise, the heart of vulnerability wrapped in hope. I never wanted this, Enzo murmured, his breath teasing against her lips as the kiss melted into a deeper connection. But I can't help but want you. Tension coiled within her, and as they parted, the exhilaration left them breathless. Then let's make it count. The echoes of the night whispering around them, they turned back toward the ambition of their shared mission, the uncertainty of their bond trembling in the air. Scene 13. The Gala Encounter. The grand ballroom of the Orion Cultural Center buzzed with anticipation, a kaleidoscope of colors swirling in the soft golden light. Crystal chandeliers dripped diamonds on elegantly dressed attendees, their laughter mingling with the soft strains of a jazz quartet. Tonja Coleman adjusted her fitted black gown, just enough to feel the delicate fabric hug her curves, and stepped into the fray. She ignored the way the sugary scent of expensive perfume hung thick in the air, focusing instead on the beating pulse of the evening. Something was brewing beneath the surface. A waiter glided by with a tray of champagne flutes, and Tonja grabbed one, feeling the cool glass against her palm as she scanned the room. Bright smiles flickered across faces, but the weight of hidden agendas thickened the atmosphere. The crime syndicate she'd been investigating had roots in tonight's gathering, making her feel both out of place and incredibly alert. "Never pegged you for the gala type, Tonja," came a voice beside her. It was Enzo Arnaud, his dark suit tailored to perfection, exuding quiet confidence. His gaze flickered over her, a fleeting spark of admiration mingling with something deeper. "I could say the same about you, Enzo," she replied, allowing herself a small smile, even as the tension between them crackled. She traced the rim of her glass, the moment stretching, heavy with unspoken words. He leaned slightly closer, the scent of cedar and spice wafting to her. "What brings an elite detective to join the social elite?" Tonja turned to face him fully, her green eyes glinting with mischief. "Investigating crime, of course. You know, the usual." Their banter floated, light, but beneath it lay deeper currents, feelings not yet acknowledged. Enzo's smile faded slightly as he registered a trio of figures entering the ballroom from behind her. They moved like smoke, sleek and shadowed, the air shifting ominously. They were associated with the crime syndicate, and they were not here for idle chatter. "Stay close," Enzo said softly, his expression serious now, betraying the concern that often lay beneath his easy charm. "We need to find out what they're up to." Tonja nodded, setting her glass down with purpose. In one smooth motion, she reached for his arm, feeling the taut muscle beneath the fabric. A jolt of electricity shot through her, unchecked desire spiraling around her consciousness. She was all too aware of the eyes drifting their way, and the two of them were a spectacle of beauty against the shimmer and glitz of the gala. As they moved through the crowd, it felt almost choreographed, the way they navigated around laughter, overfilled plates of gourmet hors d'oeuvres, and cascading satin gowns. But the closer they got to the shadows, the more palpable the tension became. It tightened the air around them, silencing the music, dripping with danger. "Oh, look who's here, Tonja and her knight in shining armor," a voice intersected, dripping with honey-thick sarcasm. It was Michelle Hart, a strikingly beautiful woman dressed in crimson, her eyes glistening with cunning and mischief. She stepped forward, flanked by two men in dark suits, her presence demanding attention. "Here to charm us or to play vigilante?" Michelle taunted, a smile that didn't reach her eyes plastered on her face. Tonja squared her shoulders. "Save the theatrics, Michelle. I'm only here on official business." Michelle leaned in, her voice a sultry whisper that barely masked animosity. "Official? Is that what you call your little escapades with Mr. Arnaud here?" A hard edge perforated the air, the confidence bleeding from the gala's atmosphere. Enzo's eyes narrowed at Michelle, the tension breaking between them. "We're not discussing anything with you." Michelle laughed, a mocking sound that drew attention. "Oh, but you should. What do you really know about the people you work with?" Without a second thought, Tonja stepped forward, daring to challenge the powerful woman in front of her. "We know you, Michelle. Your games won't work on us." Michelle's eyes glinted, a predator assessing her prey. "Games? This is bigger than you think, dear. You'll find out soon enough." "Aren't you cute?" Enzo said, trying to deflect the growing tension. "Let me know when the circus comes to town." But Michelle's gaze flicked to Tonja, lingered too long, an insight sharpened by wariness. "Careful not to lose sight of your own reflection," she purred before spinning on her heel, her entourage gliding off like smoke into the crowd. Tonja felt a chill run down her spine, the brewing storm of a greater conspiracy threatening to drown them both. "We need to be careful," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with the gravity of unsaid fears. Enzo's expression softened, brushing against her arm. "We will be together." As they locked eyes, the chaotic potential of their connection danced dangerously close to the forefront, a bright blaze against the shadows of their world. Scene 14, Family Ties. The air thickened in the cramped office as the flickering overhead light cast long shadows across the strewn papers and dark wood desk. The faint hum of traffic outside paled against the tension brewing between Tonja and Enzo. "Do you think we can trust Ishmael?" Tonja leaned back in her chair, fingers drumming restlessly against the armrest, a sign of her escalating frustration. Enzo, on the other hand, stood with arms crossed, a rigid posture that mirrored her unease. His jaw clenched, revealing a hint of that brooding energy that was so characteristic of him. "He's not our enemy, Tonja, but he's definitely not our friend either. You heard him. He's playing a deeper game." Tonja's blue eyes, stormy and sharp, pierced through the haze of uncertainty that clung to the air. "I need to focus, Enzo. The last thing I want is personal ties complicating this investigation. We need to stay on track." Enzo leaned forward, frustration spilling out of him in measured tones. "You think family ties don't matter? I'm not saying you shouldn't trust him, but watch your back, Tonja. We don't know what he's capable of." The conversation shifted like a live wire, igniting a flicker of something else, beyond just tension. As Enzo's gaze locked onto her, the air crackled with unexpressed feelings, making her pulse race. Yet there was something more pressing. "Why does he feel so?" she began, but the thought trailed off as a sudden flood of memories washed over her. Images of laughter and heartache, of family dinners soaked in deceit and betrayal. She shook her head, eyes darting to the rain-streaked window, as if hoping the remnants of the past would wash away with the storm. "Tonja." Enzo's voice was softer now, threaded with concern. He stepped closer, breaking the invisible wall that buzzed with electricity between them. He hesitated, then touched her wrist with gentle fingers, grounding her amidst the chaos. "What are you thinking?" I uncovered a connection to the syndicate," she admitted, her voice a whisper. "There's family in this mess." The words hung in the air, terrifying in their implications. A turbulent storm brewed in the depth of her heart as she faced him. Enzo's expression shifted from concern to a fierce intensity. "What do you mean, family? You can't mean." "I mean it's tied to my mother," she interrupted, the truth spilling out like a coiled spring finally released. Someone I thought was long gone." Her voice cracked, memories of childhood insecurities and abandonment flashed in her mind. Enzo inhaled sharply, his body language transforming. He was no longer just a partner. He was now her ally against this terrifying realization. "We need to find out who's involved, uncover what ties they have." He stepped back, arms lowering as he paced, trying to piece it together, even as the implications twisted around them. The room filled with silence, punctuated only by the distant wails of sirens piercing the night. Enzo's hand raked through his dark hair in frustration. "Tonja, you should have told me. This changes everything." "Does it?" she snapped, feeling defensive. They were standing at the edge of a cliff, and she ached to pull him closer rather than throw them into the tumult of this tangled mess. "I'm just trying to protect you," he said, his voice low and edged, holding an earnestness that made her heart somersault. "Protect me?" Tonja laughed softly, though there were shadows in her eyes. "Like a knight in shining armor? I don't need saving, Enzo." "No, you need a partner," he countered, his gaze unwavering. "You think you can shoulder all this alone?" The heat of their argument simmered down as she caught his unwavering stare. The room felt impossibly small, and within that space of intimacy, unresolved longing hung heavy. She sensed the stirrings in his chest, desires edging toward the surface and clashing with urgency. "Every time we get close to the truth, I feel it slipping away," she confessed, turning her eyes down to his firm hands gripping the desk. "If we're going to do this together, I need to know you'll step back when it gets murky." Enzo stepped closer, his voice husky. "And I need you to trust that I'm right here, no matter how murky it gets." Tonja's heart raced, the familiar blend of desire and fear swirling, a potent cocktail of emotion. Could she trust him, knowing what lay ahead? Promise me we'll figure it out together, she whispered, her walls wavering as vulnerability cracked the surface. I promise, he murmured, their breath mingling in the fragile space between them, thick with unspoken words waiting to escape. As tension hung palpable in the air, she couldn't help but ponder what they were all truly up against. Scene 5 Tide. The air in the room crackled with tension as the storm outside lashed against the building, wind howling through the cracks. Tonja Coleman stood before the massive oak desk of the dimly lit office, her heart racing, not solely from the hurricane outside, but from the chaos that had engulfed her life recently, and the sense of impending danger. Memories of her past flickered through her mind like a series of haunting shadows, each event layered with echoes of betrayal and resolve. Enzo Arnaud burst through the door, rain-soaked and panting, his dark hair plastered against his forehead. "Tanja," he called, his voice powerful yet still tinged with urgency. "We need to move now. They're onto us." His eyes were wide and electric, the intensity of the moment overwhelming. "I can't let them find out about my powers," she replied, swallowing the hard knot of fear in her throat. The room felt constricting, but Enzo's presence filled her with a sense of urgency. "I won't be a weapon for anyone." With a fierce gaze, Enzo closed the distance, dripping water onto the polished wooden floor. "You're not a weapon, Tonja. You're the best asset we have," he insisted, his voice thick with emotion. "You have to trust me." The conflict swirling inside her ignited a fire of anger. "Trust you? This is exactly the kind of reckless thinking that got us into this mess in the first place." Her fists clenched, a rush of adrenaline coursing through her as she turned away, unable to meet his eye. "Fine then." Enzo shot back, frustration drawing his features tight. "Do you want to keep losing? Because right now, we're outnumbered, and you always bury your head in the sand rather than confronting the truth." "Don't you think I know that?" she snapped, the words sharp like glass. The emotional weight hung thick in the air. "You don't understand what it means to carry these visions. It's like living in a nightmare that never ends." A flicker of vulnerability crossed his brow, his tone softening. "And you think I don't have nightmares? Every time I try to protect you, I wake up afraid of losing you. Isn't that what this is about?" He took a step closer, each word weighing heavier than the last. In that instant, Tanja's defenses cracked, her resentment melting into something softer. "I can't let myself be that vulnerable, Enzo. Not again." Her breathing slowed as painful memories clawed at her heart, emotions she thought had been buried. "Vulnerability isn't weakness," he challenged gently, moving even closer, their breath intertwining. "It takes strength to own who you are. Let me in, Tonja." The thunder boomed outside, like a drum roll heralding a storm that went beyond the weather as her head swirled with doubt. But in that moment, something shifted. The psychic energy around her pulsed alive, a vibrant, glowing force throbbing at her fingertips. It was a revelation. She could harness this energy, not just as a crutch or a secret, but as a power to change their fate. "Okay," Tonja whispered, her voice breaking, "but I need to do this my way." "Whatever it takes," Enzo replied, determination lighting up his dark eyes. He extended his hand. "Together." With a rush of air, she clasped his hand tightly, the connection sending a shock through her entire being. The room spun as flashes of illumination inundated her senses. Visions erupted, images of their enemies, scheming faces, broken alliances. Whole patterns unfolded like firework displays before her tired mind, warning them against an ambush waiting nearby, a group of men cloaked in darkness. "No more hiding. We're bringing the fight to them," she declared, the electric pulse of her powers intertwining with a new resolve that surged through her. Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing a figure clad in shadows, face obscured. "You should have stayed hidden, Detective Coleman," a deep voice echoed, laced with malice. But before fear could take root, Tonja squeezed Enzo's hand tighter, their fusion of energy wrapping around them like an unbreakable shield. She took a deep breath, eyes blazing. "We're not afraid," she stated boldly. The storm raged outside, matching the tensions within. An enigmatic fight awaited, but as the thunder echoed, Tonja felt something essential had transformed. Far from alone, she had let down her walls, forging a bond to stand against the storm. As they stepped into the fray, Enzo's eyes burned with an intensity that mirrored her own. No more running, right? She met his gaze, a fierce smile breaking through. Right. And with that, they surged forward together, ready to confront whatever awaited them in the tempest's eye, united in purpose and strength. Scene 16. Secrets and Shadows. The soft hum of the coffee machine filled the small, sunlit kitchen, its warmth contrasting with the chilly autumn morning that swept through the open window. Tonja Coleman stood at the counter, meticulously measuring coffee grounds into the filter. The earthy aroma enveloped her, a comforting cocoon against the undercurrents of uncertainty swirling in her thoughts. She glanced out the window, where the remnants of fall clung stubbornly to the trees, the vibrant leaves whispering secrets that felt eerily familiar. Enzo Arnaud leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, observing her with an intensity that made her heart race. His presence was magnetic, a force that pulled her despite the fog of unresolved emotions hovering between them. "Want some?" Tonja asked, breaking the charged silence. She motioned toward the steaming mug perched on the counter. "Only if you're pouring," Enzo replied lightly, a hint of playfulness softening his usually serious demeanor. He pushed off the doorframe, walking toward her, his footsteps silent but purposeful. As he approached, Tonja set her focus on her task, pouring the hot water over the grounds in a steady stream. She could feel his gaze, sharp as a knife, tracing the curve of her neck, lingering at the dip of her collarbone. It sent shivers down her spine that she fought to suppress. When she finally looked up, their eyes locked, and the air thickened with unspoken words. "Tonja?" Enzo started, an edge of hesitance creeping into his smooth voice. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, faded photograph, the edges worn and corners crinkled. "I wanted to show you something." Curiosity mingled with apprehension as she took the photograph. The image revealed a sun-drenched day, the backdrop a picturesque park with a vibrant blue sky. There, in the foreground, was a snapshot of a moment frozen in time, a younger version of herself, radiant and carefree, laughing with friends, a blissful expression that felt almost foreign now. "How did you?" Tanja's voice trailed off as she examined the faces surrounding her. One of her old college friends was perched beside her, their arms draped over each other. And there, clear as day, was Enzo, a quiet boy hidden in the background, an enigmatic smile playing on his lips that she had never noticed before. "I was there that day," Enzo said, shifting closer, his shoulder almost brushing against hers. "I didn't know you at the time, but I saw you, from a distance." His tone was filled with a vulnerability that startled her, pulling her into his world where their lives had intertwined long before that fateful day. Tonja felt her heartbeat quicken, the photograph becoming a gateway into shared memories that were never truly theirs. She swallowed hard, her thoughts swirling like the steam from her coffee. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Could I have?" Enzo's brow furrowed, vulnerability giving way to uncertainty. "I didn't know how our paths would cross again, or what that would mean. But now, here we are," he said, gesturing to the kitchen, to the closeness that radiated between them, tension crackling like static in the air. Tonja could hear the faint pulse of music from the living room, the notes wrapping around them, creating a bubble that both comforted and suffocated. "What does this mean for us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. "I wish I could say I know," Enzo replied, his tone earnest yet laced with confusion. He moved slightly closer, their shoulders now almost touching. "But I've felt it since we met. There's something." He hesitated, searching her eyes for understanding. Something undeniable. Silence enveloped them, thick and laden with uncharted emotions. Tonja could see the warmth in his gaze, the slight glimmer of hope mingling with the shadows of doubt. She could feel her defenses wavering, the walls she built around her heart beginning to crack. "I don't want to complicate things, Enzo," she finally murmured, the softness of her voice juxtaposed against the turmoil swirling within. "But you further into this, and it changes everything. Maybe we both need a change." Enzo's hand reached up, brushing against her arm, a connection that sent electricity racing through her. "I don't know all the pieces yet, but I want to find out." Tanja's breath caught as she felt the pull between them, the heat of shared history, of uncharted possibility. The kitchen, once a backdrop, became the setting for something profound, a conversation threaded with emotion, promise, and uncertainty. In that breathless space where the past whispered and the future loomed, she could almost see the outline of their potential intertwined in the soft rays of morning light. "Then let's figure it out," she breathed, the decision igniting a spark within her. She felt a shiver of relief intermingling with cautious eagerness, their unspoken agreement hanging in the air, waiting to unfurl into something transformative. But the complex tapestry of their lives was only just beginning to weave together, and outside, shadows flickered with the promise of secrets yet to be uncovered. Scene 17. Negotiating tensions. The sun dipped low over the skyline of West Ridge, casting a golden hue across the polished mahogany table where Tonja Coleman sat. The small, cramped conference room, typically reserved for mundane briefings, now bristled with tension. Murmurs echoed against the walls, edged with an anticipation thick enough to cut. A low heater hummed comfortably, contrasting sharply with the undercurrents of discomfort that buzzed among the assembled detectives and rival faction representatives. Tanja's eyes flicked to the door as Ishmael Devereaux strode in, his presence magnetic. He exuded an unspoken confidence, clad in a sleek navy suit that highlighted the breadth of his shoulders. The air stilled as he approached, its weight a symphony of unvoiced thoughts and emotions. He met Tanja's gaze momentarily, a fleeting connection that ignited a flicker of warmth in her chest. "Everyone's here," Tonja said, her voice cutting through the silence with unexpected clarity. "Let's not waste time." A representative from the rival faction, a sharp-dressed woman with a quick smile and calculating eyes named Serafina, leaned forward. "You know why we're here. The stakes have never been higher." Her tone dripped with insincerity, but her presence was undeniable. She was as formidable as they came. "Exactly," Ishmael replied, his fingers drumming lightly against the surface of the table, a rhythm echoing the rising tension. "This isn't just a negotiation. It's a potential alliance or a path to war." The sharp click of heels signaled Rosie's entrance. She slipped into the room, a flash of exuberance and confidence. "Hope I'm not late for the party." Laughing lightly, she found her place beside Tonja and whispered, "You look like you could use a little fire." Serafina regarded Rosie with mild amusement but quickly returned her attention to the table. "Fire's not what we need, dear. We need strategy." The word rang out, heavy and foreboding. As the exchange carried on, the threshold of civility began to wane. Words exchanged like weapons, each one a manifestation of untrust and hidden agendas. "Your guys are running amok, Serafina. We're not an unwatched border," Tonja remarked, her tone cold, yet unwavering. "Your arrogance is admirable, but misplaced," Serafina replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The rivalry spilled over, a palpable energy igniting the compact room. Ice formed in the air, laughter turned to sharp barbs. The banter escalated until Ishmael cut in, commanding the attention of the entire room. "If we're going to make this work, we need honesty, nothing less." His gaze pierced through the layers of deceit that lay before him. "Honesty is a luxury." No, Serafina shot back, crossing her arms defiantly. "There's no room for that in this world." Her cohorts leaned in closer, forming a fortified wall around their secrets. As the negotiations spiraled, resentment bubbled beneath the surface. Every sentiment and unspoken pact that bound them to this convoluted path. The tension bent, heartbeats quickening in anticipation of a conflict that loomed just out of sight. "Let's get real," Ishmael said, his voice low enough to beckon intimacy. "What do you want?" His stare lingered on Serafina, his dark eyes challengingly cryptic. "Your game may be complex, but it can be uncovered." For a heartbeat, silence cocooned the group. Then Serafina turned slightly, and all could see her sharp profile cutting through the shadows. "What I want is what you should want too, Ishmael. Safety." "My safety or yours?" Ishmael countered, his voice even but hard, evoking an electricity that brushed against Tanja's skin. The room felt charged, every breath an electric current. "Enough!" Tonja interjected, feeling the urge to pull them back to more grounded concerns. "We're here to look for solutions, not to inflame tempers." Her plea was earnest, echoing in the tension-laden atmosphere. The group's focus swayed between the adversarial lines. It felt as if they were navigating a live wire, each pause filled with the potential for detonation. Rosie leaned slightly closer to Tonja, her hand brushing against her arm in solidarity. In that intimate moment, a kind of unspoken understanding invaded the air, a shared determination that resonated deep within them. Every member present understood the stakes and the unyielding currents tugging them apart and bringing them together. "Let's cut to the chase," Ishmael said, his voice a simmering blend of calm and intensity. "We either work together or we risk losing everything." As the words hung in the air, heavy and laden with possibility, Tonja couldn't shake the feeling that this negotiation was merely a prelude to an uncertain battle, one that would test their loyalties and relationships against a backdrop of shadows and spoken intents. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast an eerie glow, turning each face into a map of resolve and veiled intentions. They were teetering on the edge of an uncharted abyss, where alliances would shift like sand in the wind. Scene 18, Unveiling Darkness. The tension crackled in the air as Tonja leaned against the cool brick wall of the dimly lit alleyway, her eyes sparkling with determination. "What do you think Ishmael meant by, 'the truth will shatter'?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos waiting just beyond the shadows. Enzo, standing close beside her, ran a hand through his dark hair, a habit that revealed his failing attempt to maintain composure. "Whatever it is, it's something he's been hiding for a long time." His gaze bore into hers, his blue-green eyes a storm of emotions, worry, desire, and an intensity that left her breathless. Suddenly, a distant shout broke the air, sending a shiver down Tanja's spine. "They're coming," she whispered, her pulse quickening. She felt the world around her dim as her psychic senses lit up, flashes of pain and betrayal swirling thickly in her mind. "Focus, Tonja," Enzo said, stepping closer, the warmth of his body pulling her from her visions. "Stay with me. We'll get through this together." "I can't shake the feeling," she replied, a tremor in her voice betraying her usual fortitude. "It's like I can't trust him, yet I can't let go of what we shared." He closed the distance between them, the weight of their shared vulnerability hanging in the air. "I've been thinking about that too. If the truth comes out, it could change everything." She finished for him, her heart racing. "But maybe it's time. We can't keep hiding in the shadows, can we?" Enzo hesitated, his expression shifting as realization settled in. "You mean facing it, head on?" His eyes darkened, the intensity drawing her in, together. In that moment, the alley felt charged with emotion, waves of unspoken words and desires crashing between them. Tonja could feel the gravity of their choices crisply, the air thickening with possibilities. She beckoned him closer, and he responded instinctively, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling in the cool night. His voice lowered to a murmur. "What are you afraid of, Tonja?" "Losing you," she confessed, the honesty slipping from her lips like a whispered promise. The intensity of their connection drew her in as tantalizing warmth flooded her veins, glimmering in the uncertainty of both their futures. "You won't lose me. Whatever happens, I choose you," he said, his determination fierce, as if he could shield her from the world's chaos with those simple words. Each syllable pressed deeper, tethers snapping back between them, weaving unbreakable bonds. With every breath they shared, Tonja felt the weight of their impending showdown with the syndicate push them closer. Yet his words stirred something profound and tender within her. She reached toward him, the distance narrowing, and Enzo's hand slid along her waist, firm and sure. His lips brushed against hers in a gentle, hesitant caress, igniting a flame of sensations that washed over them, a clash of heat and emotion that was both comforting and exhilarating. Their kiss deepened, lingering as the world outside fell away, leaving only the taste of desire and resolve. As the kiss broke, their foreheads rested against each other, sharing the same breath and the unspoken words that bound them. Tonja felt alive. "What now?" She barely managed, her heart still racing. "Now we're ready," he said softly, his voice steady, emboldened by their emotional leap. "We face this darkness together." Just then, the echo of footsteps sounded down the alley, sharp and urgent, a grim reminder that the time for hesitation was over. They pulled back, the reality of their circumstances crashing down. They were not just detectives anymore, but warriors in their own right, fighting not only against the shadows of crime, but also the shadows of their pasts. "Let's shine some light into this," she said, squared her shoulders with newfound determination. As they stepped out into the bustling night, the stakes raised higher than ever. Tonja couldn't help but think that the battle ahead wasn't just about the crime syndicate. It was about their souls and how love could conquer even the darkest of circumstances. Scene 19, Reflections in Chaos. Tonja stood at the edge of the rooftop, the city's skyline sprawling before her like a living tapestry, a collage of light and shadow woven into the fabrics of night. The chaos of the previous hours pulsed in her veins, the adrenaline fading, but the echoes of conflict resonating in the silence that surrounded her. She closed her eyes, letting the cool breeze tease her skin and tug at her senses, reminding her that the danger was not yet over. Footsteps sounded behind her, soft yet deliberate. Enzo Arnau approached, his presence displacing the air between them, stirring something tense and unspoken. Her heart raced anew, not from fear, but from the force of their shared history, a current that thrummed beneath their verbal exchanges and silences alike. Beautiful, isn't it? Enzo gestured toward the glittering city lights that twinkled against the inky blackness, his voice steady, but she caught a tremor. Beautiful and broken, Tonja replied, her gaze still fixed on the skyline, as though seeking clarity among the city's imperfections. It mirrors us, doesn't it, full of cracks and wounds. We're not broken, he countered, stepping closer, the warmth radiating from his body, wrapping around them both like a blanket, sheltering them from the chaos below. You're a force of nature, Tonja. If anything, we're resilient. She turned to face him, their eyes locking, an electric moment suspended in time. The world around seemed to dissolve, leaving only them, two souls tangled in a web of unresolved feelings and haunting memories. Resilience doesn't erase the pain, Enzo. Her voice softened, the bravado fading into an understated vulnerability. And yet here we are, he said, his tone low and intense, battle-tested and still standing. Tonja's heart thudded loud in her chest as she stepped closer, the distance between them a chasm filled with longing. Standing or simply existing? What's the difference? Enzo dared to bridge the gap, his breath warm against her cheek. The playful flicker in his eyes was replaced with steely determination. We can either succumb to what's happened to us or fight against it. I choose to fight. The intensity of his gaze captured her, fire sparking in the depths of her insides. And what if fighting means hurting the ones we care for? A silence followed, pregnant with the weight of shared secrets. Then, without warning, Enzo surged forward, closing the space around them. Then that's the risk we take. His hands grasped her arms firmly, yet tenderly, grounding her as if willing her to understand. Tonja held her breath, the flicker of his pulse igniting a wild warmth that coursed through her. Are we truly ready to confront this, to confront each other? His answer hung in the air, pulsing like a heartbeat. The steel of his determination mixed with the softness in his eyes made her want to believe, yet the fear of entanglement loomed in the shadows of her mind. I am, he asserted. I've seen the darkest corners of your heart, Tonja. It scares me. It's beautiful. I don't want to hide from it. Yet, hiding seems so safe. Is it? He challenged, tilting his head, his expression unwavering. Hiding is a prison, and I can't live like that, not anymore. She closed her eyes as if to escape the truth he was unraveling, then opened them to find his face mere inches from hers, his breath mingling with the spring air, an intoxicating melange of urgency and warmth. What if? Forget what if, Enzo interrupted, his voice a gritty whisper filled with fervor. Just feel. The world around them blurred. The night melted into an infinite moment of connection pulsating with heat and tension. Tonja found herself leaning closer, drawn into the orbit of his presence, feeling the magnetic pull of all they had endured, every cheat, every lie, and every truth. Without realizing it, she reached out, brushing her fingers against his, the contact sending shockwaves up her arm. Sensations spiraled between them, a wild dance of light and shadow as they stood at the precipice of something dangerous yet indescribably beautiful. Then let's feel together, she whispered, the weight of her fears mingling with the thrill of possibility, two hearts ready to collide into the chaos that shaped them. Together, he echoed, his hands sliding to her waist, anchoring them in reality. As their hearts thundered in concert, it became clear they were reflections of each other amidst the chaos, ready to embrace the storm. Scene 20, The Bittersweet Choice. Amid the faint hum of fluorescent lights, the bullpen buzzed with activity. a mosaic of bustling detective work and quiet anticipation. Tonja Coleman stood by the intricate map, a compendium of red pins and yellow strings mapping 3 months of investigation. Today, it was finally over. The lab reports had come in, the puzzle pieces fell into place, and the conspiracy they'd unearthed swirled with striking clarity. Yet, heartache thickened the air as she took in the chaotic scene around her. "I guess that's it," Enzo Arnaud said, leaning against the doorframe with a mix of relief and pensiveness. His green eyes, so full of charisma, now mirrored a fraught uncertainty. The tension radiating between them was palpable, like the electric charge before a storm. "Yeah, for now," Tonja replied, her voice steady but layered. "But we both know the dust won't settle for long." She glanced at him, holding onto the weight of his gaze, hoping to dissolve the distance that had grown between their hearts. "Doesn't mean we can't celebrate, right?" Enzo proposed, the corners of his mouth lifting in a lopsided grin that softened the lines of tension on his face. "I heard Tati is cooking up something spectacular tonight at the cafe." Tonja narrowed her eyes playfully, her insides twisting slightly at the prospect. "Tati cooks solely for her boyfriends, and last time I checked, we're not that." Enzo pushed off the door with a cocky swagger. "Not yet, anyway." He took a step closer, and Tonja held her breath, their chemistry spiking like high voltage. She couldn't ignore the absence of air between them, like a space thick enough to drown in loaded with unspoken words. Their colleagues drifted in and out, shadows in the periphery as the conversation turned intimate. Behind the clattering of keyboards and the low murmur of gossip, the unsaid moments danced around the two detectives. "Why are you always dodging me?" Enzo's voice turned serious, tangentially breaking the prevailing laughter from a nearby group of investigators. "We made this mess together. We should be figuring out how to deal with it together. That's all we ever do, deal with things, solve problems." Tanja's tone carried a firm undertone, punctuated by the crackling charge between them. What if we had a future where we didn't have to deal with things? What would that even look like? He met her gaze, and in that silence stretched between them, the world receded until only their pulsing heartbeats resonated. "I want to explore that with you. But right now, it feels like putting a pin in it. I don't want to waste time on what-ifs." Just then, Rosie Santana burst into the room with a contagious exuberance, her laughter breaking the weight that had settled over Tonja and Enzo. "Why the long faces? We nailed them, right? The crooked developers are crumbling like day-old bread. I call that a win." "What win?" Enzo scoffed lightly. "We're still tangled up in a web of organized crime." "Yeah, but that's our bread and butter, my man." Rosie winked. Who doesn't love a bit of chaos mixed with a side of justice? She poured herself a cup of coffee and glanced at Tonja, sensing the subtle thread of tension in the air. "You and Enzo are still in one piece, so that's a start." "Let's just focus on the case for now," Tonja said, a touch too sharply, watching Enzo's expression shift into something guarded. The victorious energy fizzled subtly, cracks spiderwebbing across the camaraderie as they navigated their budding connection. Rosie glanced between them, her perceptiveness shining through. "All I'm saying is that taking a break to enjoy life might be exactly what you need. I know a place with the best music, Let Loose." "The last Let Loose turned into a 3-day conspiracy investigation," Tonja reminded her, but laughing nervously, the tension eased. "Come on, Tonja. It's not every day we capture a ring like that." Enzo interjected, stepping fully into the conversation again. "What if we just let go for one night?" Tonja turned to him, searching for the resolution in his eyes, the desire to thread their worlds into one cohesive vision. "And if we do, what then? It complicates things." "Complicated is our middle name," Enzo shot back, lips flourishing into a daring smile. "Besides, we've navigated worse. Are we truly afraid of some unfair advantages?" Tonja laughed at that, but her heart trembled with the truth behind his words. Perhaps complicating things was what they needed, not removing the distance they'd put in place. "Let me think about it." As she stepped back to the map, pretending to study the evidence, an undeniable truth loomed large. This was her close, bittersweet choice. Every path lay fraught with tension, desire unbridled, their worlds converging into a cacophony of ambition and intimacy. Suddenly, a slow melody drifted from Enzo's phone, contrasting sharply with the office's usual roar. He raised an eyebrow. That's our song. Tonja faced him as the chorus filled the gap, a strange clarity enveloping them both. Maybe we should dance then. Maybe we should, he replied, stepping closer, their bodies calling for a connection that transcended words, bursting with possibility as the crowded office faded into a blissful blur. Scene 21. Repercussions of Love. The early morning light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the opulent apartment belonging to Tonja Coleman. It was a sunlit sanctuary, a stark contrast to the turbulence swirling within her. The air was rich with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the faintest hint of jasmine from the vase on the kitchen island. Yet the volatility of her emotions made the room feel electric, as if charged with unresolved tension. Tonja stood by the bay window, her tall frame silhouetted against the golden glow, staring out at the sleepy streets of Washington, D.C., where secrets lurked beneath the surface. From the corner of her eye, she caught the reflection of Ishmael Devereaux entering the kitchen, his presence both comforting and daunting. He moved with a predatory grace, his attention fixated on her, as if she were the only thing that mattered in that moment. She turned slightly, pretending to be absorbed in the outside world, but the reality of what she had chosen, the consequences echoing through her professional life, settled in her stomach like a heavy stone. "Coffee?" he asked, his voice smooth like dark chocolate, rich and inviting. "Just thinking." Tanja's tone was laced with an undercurrent of anxiety as she poured herself a cup. "About work," Ishmael probed, stepping closer, invading her space just enough to raise the hairs on the back of her neck.